All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, Josh Sirtson, a World Alternative Media here, and there's so much to go into today. We are looking at yet another bloodbath, but there's more to it than that. I mean, this is getting beyond what anyone could have comprehended even just a couple weeks ago. We've been warning about the crash of the stock market for a long time. It was a bubble that had to burst, but the catalyst being the coronavirus, I don't think many people could, expect not just the stock market to crash, but to have this pandemic happening at the exact same time. And we're going to get into a bunch of articles today as we are live. Make sure to press like on this video and check those links below to help out WAM any way you can and send in those super chats. But I'm going to be going into some of these articles. First, I just want to run through some of the issues as Trump just banned all non-essential travel from Europe, which is huge. We're going to go into that in a bit. And obviously, the ECB's Christine Lagarde is warning of a collapse in the style of 2008. I think it's a little worse than that at this point. But let's go into this first article, Tim, as it shows out of Zero Hedge, stocks puke into bear market as U.S. financial conditions crash most since Lehman. And as the article goes into, today the stench of a desperate liquidity scramble as the dollar rallied while stocks, bonds, Bitcoin, crude, and gold were all dumped. The Fed ramped up its liquidity bailout facility to a stunning $175 billion per day, and still the market kept collapsing. The Dow and S&P crash into a bear market, erasing most of the Trump rally. This is the fastest drawdown from a peak into bear market in history and worst start to a year since 2009. U.S. financial conditions are tightening massively, crashing at the fastest pace since Lehman. Note the sudden drop is reminiscent of the first moments of the crisis in August 2007, with a massive dollar shortage evident, forcing the Fed to puke liquidity into the markets, which is perhaps why the market is now demanding 82 basis points of rate cuts next week by the Fed. Today was a bloodbath in U.S. equities, with small caps and the Dow hammered hardest. Dow futures show the week's carnage best. Just make sure to check the scale. These are simply massive swings. And on the week, small caps are down almost 13%. The Dow was the biggest underperformer because Boeing stock crashed today, but it was the CDS that is more worrying. Virus-related travel and leisure sectors were hammered. Bank stocks were clubbed like a baby seal today, now down a stunning 10 to 16% on the week alone. That's a terrible analogy, by the way. VIX surged.
Now we've been demonetized for this video.
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
So way to go,
Baby
Zero
seal,
Hedge.
you couldn't think of anything else, Zero Hedge. Come on. VIX surged back above 50 today as Bloomberg details the historic oil market collapse that's dragging down shares of the biggest Western explorers is swelling yields on investor payouts. The elite cohorts of large international drillers known as the super majors, ExxonMobil Corp, Royal Dutch Shell PLC, Chevron Corp, Total SA, and BP PLC, now are churning out boasted yields that dwarf those paid by the broader S&P 500 index, and credit markets are collapsing with HY spreads smashing wider and IG spreads are exploding in the U.S. I want to bounce to the next article before we go to Tim Picciott, who's sitting in with us right now. I want to go into this article out of Bloomberg that says ECB's Lagarde warns of 2008 style crisis unless Europe acts. Oh, well, it's better late than never, I guess. I mean, how long has it been that we've been warning about this kind of stuff, Tim? And then, we have Christine Lagarde come in as it's all coming down, as they have declared this a bear market, as the WHO calls the coronavirus a global pandemic. Now she's saying this might be a bad thing. As this article says, European Central Bank President Christine Lagarde said Europe risks a major economic shock, echoing the global financial crisis unless leaders act urgently on the coronavirus outbreak, and signaled that her institution will take steps as soon as Thursday. Lagarde told European Union leaders on a conference call late on Tuesday that without coordinated action, Europe will see a scenario that will remind many of us of the 2008 great financial crisis, according to a person familiar with her comments. With the right response, the shock will likely prove temporary. She added. Lagarde said her officials are looking at all their tools for Thursday policy decisions, particularly measures to provide super cheap funding and ensure liquidity and credit don't dry up, said the person who declined to be identified because the call was private. And I find it funny because what she means by, temporary means that she's thinking that they're going to push so much communist QE, so much money into this to try and buy their way out of this absolute collapse. And I don't think it's going to work. We're going to go to the story about Trump soon. But first, I want to go to you, Tim, and hear your thoughts on this craziness. It just seems like every day I look at it, I'm not trying to fearmonger, guys, but this is just beyond insanity at this point. I mean, everything seems to be in a complete dramatic collapse right now.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. And when you were in the last article, you were mentioning HY spreads. Just so people know at home, that stands for high yield, which is also a nice way of saying junk bonds. And so it's the junk bonds, and IG would be investment grade bonds. And as something that John Snice and I have pointed out many times, that half of the investment grade bonds are one step away from junk. So that's also something I mentioned in my AnarchoVegas speech. You had mentioned Boeing as part of the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Well, one thing that Boeing was in the news for today, and I don't have the article pulled up right now. However, they drew down their entire line of credit today. So just, I want to say maybe it was like a month ago, maybe not even a month ago, they took out, I believe it was a $13.7 billion line of credit. And now they are worried about the banks rescinding on that credit. So what they did today, or maybe this was yesterday, is they actually pulled their entire credit line and put it in their bank. So then that way, the banks couldn't then renege on them and say, hey, actually, that 14.7, we're going to cut it down to 2. And so Boeing is in big trouble from every side. I mean, you've got the 737 Supermax. That's a huge thorn in their side, obviously. And now that there's less demand, coming in terms of, people traveling, that's just a big 1-2 hit that Boeing is the last thing they needed. Also important to point out that Christine Lagarde is also the former president of the International Monetary Fund. You've got guys like John Perkins who wrote books, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, where essentially the IMF's role in all this is basically to allow other countries to get enslaved to you. So very fitting that now she's over there at the European Central Bank. I've always, for some reason, every time I look at her, I think she looks like an alien. So I don't know what's really going on with.
Wasn't she indicted several years ago, Tim? I mean, why is she still? She goes from IMF to the ECB. Replaces Mario Draghi. I mean, she's a career criminal. I mean, banker. I don't even know why anyone listens to her anymore. I mean, she's been wrong so many times, too. It's amazing that people take her seriously. It's like Paul Krugman. How many times can someone be wrong before people go, hey, maybe we shouldn't put them in charge of this communist criminal racket that we call central banking?
Yeah, then Paul Krugman just reminds me of when he was talking about his computer security services as well. If you guys remember that tweet. But here,
we won't say the keyword. We won't say the key. They'll get that in the algo. But yeah, that's it's pretty creepy. If anyone wants to look up Paul Krugman and his QAnon hacking his computer, you'll see what he's talking about there.
Yeah, that little goodie was only up on Twitter not for very long. But I actually have it pulled up on screen. IMF's Lagarde put under investigation in French fraud case. And so this dates back to 2008 when she was a French finance minister. And yeah, big surprise that somebody in banking over here got in trouble. But, I'm sure if we tried doing anything along the lines of what she did, we would probably be still in jail right now. But she's Christine Lagarde, so she probably...
Or we'll be like, Chelsea Manning, who just expels, facts like a journalist does, like any good whistleblower does, and ends up attempting suicide about an hour ago as we record this, which is absolutely sad news. We're going to continue talking about this shortly, Tim, and we're going to be taking questions from the audience. For those watching right now, make sure to press like on this video. As we had just previously reported, the stock market continues to plunge. The Dow continues to plunge. Obviously, they're trying to do whatever they can to dig themselves out of this hole. And obviously, as we reported, not only is this the worst since Lehman, but we have Christine Lagarde warning of a 2008-like scenario, which is ironic, obviously, coming from her. But I do want to go on to the next story, which is breaking right now, which all correlates, and I'll bring it all together in a moment. But that is that Trump says he will ban all travel from Europe for 30 days. And this is apparently not applying to the United Kingdom, but it's a 30-day travel ban from European countries Wednesday night as a part of the administration's effort to stem the spread of the coronavirus. And going back to us, Tim, it's crazy because what I'm seeing here is that it's not going to be banned to go to Europe. It's going to be banned to come from Europe. And he says that he's promising some kind of bailout. He isn't clear in what kind of bailout that'll be. I'm guessing it's going to be for, he says small businesses, but I'm pretty sure that that money, like that farm bill, that money is going to end up going towards, you know, companies like American Airlines and stuff like that. Because, I mean, think of the billions and billions and billions of dollars that's getting wiped out in a 30-day period where they're not allowing flights. Now, I understand some people will sympathize with the idea because a lot of people are scared of how the coronavirus will develop, and rightly so to some extent, especially among older people, obese people, or people with autoimmune disease or asthma. But nonetheless, when you cut travel and what did he call it? Non-essential travel from Europe for 30 days, you're wiping out not just a huge part of the tourism industry, a huge part of, I live in Las Vegas, a huge part of what's happening here. And by the way, there is just a case of coronavirus caught at the Mirage Hotel here in Las Vegas today. But you're also wiping out just billions of dollars from airlines. All these airlines have to cancel all these flights. It'll stop the circulation, so they won't be able to go around in a circle and catch other flights to bring to other places. It's a nightmare for that industry. Tim, what do you think is going to happen to the travel industry? I mean, the flights are insanely cheap right now. If you Google any flights, it's just absolutely insane. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm using this as a positive. Just booked a flight the other day. I mean, I know that Josh won't really like this, but it was to the Libertarian National Convention. But even though I don't even like the Libertarian Party, I'm mainly going there sort of to troll them. But I got the tickets for $171 round trip, which, you know, for me, I think is pretty incredible. Looking at taking some other flights too. And, you know, I'm healthy. I've got one of those masks if I need it. Actually, I bought a full hazmat suit like 4 or 5 years ago, so I've got a couple of those too. So, which I did see Naomi Campbell apparently is walking through the airports these days wearing the full on full entire hazmat suit. But yeah, the travel industry. I mean, of course it's crony capitalism on the way up, socialism on the way down. You had mentioned that this is going to benefit quote unquote small businesses. Their definition of small is basically like under 5 billion. I mean, so you're any mom and pop business, they're probably, what's going to happen is there's all these talks of payroll tax cuts. Well, let's get into what the payroll tax even is. So me being self-employed, I got to pay 15.3% off right off the top of everything I earn goes to a Ponzi scheme known as Social Security, and then we have another few percentage that goes to Medicare, which is also a Ponzi scheme. And then if you make over a certain amount, then you have a certain excise tax. So what they're doing now is 6.2% of that 15.3 is the employee portion of what you and I contribute into. And you're not American, so you're not contributing. But the American listeners here who are working a W-2 job, 6.2% of your paycheck is being stolen for Social Security. Now they're proposing eliminating that down to zero. I believe in 2009, Obama actually brought it down to 2%. So, I mean, I can envision something like that happening. But the reason they don't want to have this plan work, or not necessarily work, but the reason they don't want to implement this plan is because this plan is geared towards people who actually have jobs. And so what they want to do is the Democrats want to have this go to people who don't have jobs as well. Right. And so, I expect this to be shot down. Maybe they'll lower it back down to 2%. But it's then going to usher in a lot of really bad stuff that's permanently going to be there. So they're going to be this paid workers leave. Well, who pays the workers? Is it going to be the other small businesses and small corporations? If they do decrease the payroll down to 6.2%, are they then going to double what it is on the employer side? And then so effectively I'm screwed anyways, no matter how you shake this out. And I have an idea that's probably what's going to happen. But I mean, for me, I would love it. I mean, if there's a big coronavirus scare and I can all of a sudden get out of paying, like $12,000 in taxes next year because of it, I'm all for that.
Yeah, I just can't help thinking of when that massive bailout went towards farmers after certain tariffs were put in place, and then it turned out that most of the money wasn't actually going to the small farmers; it was going home to like the big agricultural farmers that are tied in with Monsanto and that sell to McDonald's and stuff like that. It's like, oh, these good old small farmers. Then you look at where the money goes. Follow the money, folks. But I do want to mention a comment from RMV in the chat that says futures down 955, bloody red. What do you think about the futures?
Yeah, so the futures, what did you say it was down again?
955.
Yeah, and actually I'm on Trading Economics now, and it's actually showing a little bit over 1,000 right now. So this is crazy times. So yeah, down 1,063. And for me, what I think about it is, and I know that I've been mentioning this several times, that I am a financial advisor, and so this is not financial advice, but this is educational. If you guys go to the video that I made for the Anarcho speech, and then Josh gave a really nice intro to that, at the end of that video, this was February 20th, which I think was the day before the market went down. I talked about my strategy. That strategy has performed exceedingly well. Last year, we went up about 25%. This year, most of my clients are still even year to date on their current portfolio of year to date from January,
right.
Which I'd say, an average, they're either up, between plus or minus, 2% up and down. But this, we're talking about, we still locked in all the gains. So how many people out there, how many financial advisors out there can actually say that they locked in all the gains going up and then didn't get the gains going down? And I'm not talking about an insurance product. Most of my clients were 100% invested. I almost have the exact same strategy that I've been running since August of 2018. I don't have to make a bunch of trades, but we had positions that have gone up nearly 400% just since January 15th. And so,
right, I can't think of anyone else that has those numbers that I've looked into, Tim. Obviously, if you're interested, you can become a client of Tim's by checking the link below and going to the libertyadvisor.com. And by the way, big shout out to Shinobi Wan, who sent New Zealand $3.49 in the super chat. It says beer money. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. It'll be water money for now. I have a flu and I'm still here, guys, because the news must go on. I do not have the virus. I'm good. One person mentioned something that I did want to mention in the video is that maybe this will get people's attention. Tom Hanks has just been diagnosed with coronavirus alongside his wife. So that's interesting news. That's another person that we know of. There's a lot of people in government positions that have been diagnosed as well, which is not as bad in my opinion. But I think the biggest issue is that it affects older people, obese people, people with asthma, and people with autoimmune diseases. Most people my age are going to be fine. However, and it's going to give us an opportunity for cheap flights. What I'm worried about is when the airlines try to make back that money and compensate, and they're going to blast prices sky high, I think, at once travel resumes.
It's going to be $20 for every roll of toilet paper when you're on the plane, though. So that's where they're going to get you.
Yeah. Well, but $20 is $20. I do want to note that, again, for those just tuning in, Trump banned all non-essential travel from Europe, but not to Europe, and it's excluding the UK. I am concerned about where this is going. I'm concerned more than the coronavirus. I'm concerned where the government's going and where the control mechanisms will go, because obviously we'd be crazy to think otherwise, that the government won't make the best of this crisis and do whatever they can. There's evidence that the government has heavily been involved in weaponizing this issue dramatically. I don't know what's going up on all over the screen there, Tim, but
I'm trying to get a super chat deal where now when people send in super chats, it will be up. We can get the actual chat on screen, but I can't. Okay, so I was just.
It's all good for now. It's all good. It's all good for now. We'll just.
I'll get that.
Don't worry about that.
Here we go.
But anyway, we are going to take some questions, and super chats help a lot. Gwen Durma says, "Do you think Trump would have put those bans and loans in place if he didn't think it would get worse?" Well, and here's the thing, because again, people are conflating issues and they're doing it in a non-contextual way. I want to read something I wrote on Facebook today. You don't have to put anything up on the screen, Tim, but I'll just read it as I wrote it earlier today, if I can scroll down my million posts on Facebook, because it's something that I think people need to understand. And I wrote, and I quote, "Reminder, while H1N1 killed far more people once it ran its course than the first couple months of coronavirus, if you go by percentiles, it only killed 0.02% of people who contracted it." Remember, almost a billion people got H1N1 at the time. The death rate was very low. People keep using numbers instead of percentiles, which is non-contextual. SARS killed around 10% of people, but only affected 8,098 people. MERS killed 34% of people, but only infected 2,500 people. Context matters. It's not about fear, it's about facts. Is this being weaponized? Yes. Is this being used to bring in more government control? Of course. Does that discount the actual statistical facts? No. I think people are coddled these days, are so coddled these days that they can't imagine anything like this happening. Of course, it used to happen on a grander scale due to a lack of hygiene, but that doesn't mean it cannot happen now. Regardless of how this started, who created it, and its inability to seriously affect most young people, it doesn't change the fact that this is extremely detrimental to the elderly, the obese, those with upper respiratory issues like asthma, and those with autoimmune diseases. People are playing it off too much as if pointing out the facts means you're fear-mongering and saying the sky is falling. No, they're facts. Scientific facts, mathematical facts. This isn't the same as H1N1 or Zika or any of those past pandemics. I laughed this off in the beginning myself, but I broke confirmation bias and forced myself to read all the things I scoffed at. This is real. The question is, how will you react to it? It's important that you don't sacrifice your rights to the state. It's important that you demonstrate your abilities as a free, responsible human being. This is your time to shine, freedom lovers. This is your time to put your money where your mouth is and prove yourself to be a self-sustainable, prepared, independent human being. You will probably be okay from the illness, but the aftermath is far worse. And that's what I wrote on Facebook, as well as float.app, which you can find me there at flote.app at Josh Sigurdsson. I know there's a lot of fear mongering. I know they're weaponizing the fear mongering and the disease itself. But with that said, it's not these claims like the flu kills more people. Context matters. The amount of people, the percentile, and how easy it is to spread. And the fact that the coronavirus can sit on a surface for up to 6 weeks in some cases, that should be of concern to you. And while it's probably not going to hurt you too badly, it's probably going to, and if you're under 60, that is. If you're over 60, it can. If you're over 70, it very well can. If you're over 80, you should be very careful. Most people still won't die from it over 80, but it's still a detrimental illness that can cause lifelong issues as well. So while there is hoaxes involved in it, while there is fear-mongering involved in it, there's also truth, reality that we need to comprehend and understand. And not just that, the government's response to it and the stock market's response to it. There is a reason to be concerned, not scared, and not hiding under your bed, but concerned. And we should take that concern and act upon it and be prepared. And we see all the evidence, as I showed in a video at Walmart, I believe 2 days ago, food shortages, toilet paper shortage, which is so stupid. People are buying a 5-year supply of toilet paper and no food. I mean, it's ridiculous. People are buying all the soap. Like, why are these people buying 70 things of soap? Look, I've been talking about preparing for a long time. You need to know how preparing works, how you survive as a human being. Buying all the soap in a store means only you have soap and all of your friends don't have soap. Spreads faster that way. Just breaking that to you guys. But with that said, people should be stocking up on food anyway, even if this wasn't happening. And unfortunately, too many people are unprepared because we've become dependent as a society, and that is how all great civilizations fall. Anyway, let's look at a few of these comments here. Make sure to press like on this video if you haven't already and share it on social media. And we do see comments like from Edwin C. that says, this fear porn is making me hard. Well, I can't help it if you're not actually listening to what I'm saying, because this is more of an opportunistic situation for those of us that care about freedom and those of us that want to make a stand for our freedom. And it shouldn't be as much about fear. You should be concerned, though. I mean, it's just facts that are detrimental to the vast public. You should be concerned about, but you should also apply the right solutions, just like we've been talking about the stock market for years and talking about it being in a bubble and talking about the lack of fundamentals and saying that eventually it would crash and people should do something about it. And we were called fearmongers for that.
I mean, Donald Trump said in June 2016, the stock market's a big, fat, ugly bubble. And then what he did went in there, he blew it up even bigger. I voted for the guy, so you can't call me Trump derangement syndrome. And now, and Josh will probably call me other things for voting. But when it comes to Donald Trump, I mean, all he wants to do, everything he's doing is hanging his hat in the stock market. He married himself to the stock market. Now the stock market's going down. And so he's doing everything he can to game the system. It's not a very good way to run things, always being worried about what's the stock market doing today, what's it going to do tomorrow. Because right now, I think there's an 86% chance if the incumbent it has a positive stock market the prior 2 months to an election, then they're going to win. So it's one of the greatest indicators of who's going to win is the stock market. And so Sleepy Joe Biden might have been able to save the day over here because of this whole coronavirus thing, assuming that he doesn't get stricken with coronavirus, because all the candidates running are like 77, 78 years old. You're mentioning 80-year-olds. Going to give a happy birthday shout out to my grandfather, who actually had his 80th birthday at Disney a couple days ago. I was one of the only
By the way,
there.
And happy birthday to him. I do want to note that, I mean, Joe Biden's 77, and his doctor said he is a very healthy 77-year-old man. But one thing that they did not study was his cognitive abilities. They just left that completely out of his out of that exam. But also, Bernie Sanders is a million years old, and I mean, age doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, a 2-year-old could do just as good of a job as president as a 200-year. It doesn't matter.
The fact that we're even talking about it is the problem. The fact that they have so much power that it even matters is really the big point. And then who gave the presidency more power? During Obama, they thought it was gonna be Hillary, and so they loaded up everything with even more and more power to the executive. And so, for me, I'm not going to be, cheering when I see Trump. This is a classic Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution. I don't know. Did they deliberately create this crisis? Was it engineered in Wuhan? Was it,
We should always look at who benefits. Cui bono, follow the money. And honestly, there are a lot of upsides for certain countries in the world for this to happen. The U.S., to some degree, I mean, this allows them to have, commit to martial law, putting people into FEMA camps. And just at the snap of a finger, it happens like that. And China, I don't believe the numbers of dwindling coronavirus cases in China are correct. I think they're killing people. I think they're disappearing people. I think they're not releasing the real numbers. And I do believe that this reoccurring case of coronavirus, they keep saying that people are getting a reoccurring case. It's not that it's reoccurring. It's that they're creating super bugs because they are making their numbers look good by releasing people before they're completely well. And then it starts coming back and starts taking power over them again. And then they end up more sick again. And they say, oh, it's reoccurring. No, you guys are creating super bugs. It's like taking antibiotics for 3 of the 6 days you're supposed to take them. You're going to create a super bug. I mean, it's just science. So honestly, I expect this to get worse before it gets better. But
I didn't know about this whole 6. You said it's 6 weeks that it can stay on a surface.
In some cases, they've done studies where they found that it could stay alive on a surface for 6 weeks, which is unthinkable. Which is something that you would expect to be designed as a bioweapon, because what kind of illness does that? And again, talking about older people, this is a issue for older people. I have many older people in my life that, one person I know is going to get through this is G. Edward Griffin, who is actually, he's been calling something I've been slightly disagreeing with him on regarding him saying it's a complete hoax.
I'm knocking on wood for that statement. I can't take that liability if anything. So.
Well, I'll have this conversation with him soon, but obviously he's hosting the Red Pill Expo in Jekyll Island in Georgia in June, and you can use promo code WHAM to buy tickets to that and save 10%. But I want to mention, I mean, he's 88 years old. If one guy's going to survive, it's going to be him at 88. And there have been a few cases of people over 100 that have survived. So, I mean, I don't know. One thing he was talking in a video yesterday, which much of it I agreed with, regarding HIV and the epidemic and how they just called everything that they found HIV. The death toll in Africa wasn't actually higher than any other year, but they were saying hundreds of millions of people are dying in Africa from this issue of HIV, and it turned out that they were just putting the word HIV on every illness, pneumonia, everything that people were dying from in the region, and to prop it up. And then they had vaccines come in and all that kind of stuff, which weren't working, obviously.
And they sort of do that with flu here. I mean, if someone dies and before they got to the hospital, I mean, they sort of just carte blanche, just call it the flu. And we're going to pull up on screen that article where 100-year-old man recovers from coronavirus in China. oldest patient to do so yet. And this was from March 10th. I think there was actually someone else that was 100.
Yeah, a 102-year-old person just survived as well, I think, as of this morning. And a big shout out to Tobias Magnus, who sent Canadian $2 in the super chat. Thank you very much, Tobias. I really appreciate it. I always appreciate your support. You're awesome. And big shout out to you. He says, those places that have the highest death rates are cities like Wuhan and Milan that are 5G testing grounds. So sick people combined with 5G might just be deadly. And I've heard this a lot. And it's interesting because combined with the HIV issue as well, a lot of people are seeing a HIV immunity vaccine is in development regarding coronavirus. But what I was getting at is that what G. Edward Griffin was saying was that he was kind of conflating, well, they'll fake the issue. And that could be the case. There might be many cases of coronavirus that were actually pneumonia. The testing is absolutely terrible, just absolutely terrible. And it's enforced by the CDC. No one else is allowed to test in the United States and make a legitimate test. It's all just in the CDC's hands. Big monopoly of power there. But with that said, mathematics, science alone show that this is more deadly than most other illnesses, regardless of more deaths. More deaths doesn't mean more dangerous. Percentiles are what decides how dangerous something is, generally speaking. So I think that should be noted. Again, for those that are just tuning in, Donald Trump has banned all non-essential travel from Europe, not to Europe, and that's excluding UK. Christine Lagarde is saying that we're seeing a 2008 rise up, and it could be very bad, but it might just be temporary. I think what she means is she's going to flood it with money, communism, central banking as we know it, and obviously we are looking at the worst crash since Lehman, which we went into in depth earlier in the video. Lollag sent $2 in the super chat as well and says, what do you expect to happen with crypto? Well, I'm going to go to Tim with this in a moment because he predicted this pretty well back at AnarchoVegas at the TDV stage in his speech, and I want to get to that in a moment. But first, I do want to say that it seems evident that wars cause crypto to go up. The fear of war causes crypto to go up. Even maybe the coronavirus itself causes crypto to go up. What doesn't is the stock market collapsing. I feel like crypto has been following the stock market, at least to some degree. It's kind of broken away from the stock market a little bit recently. However, I believe that when the money starts really pumping out, they start printing, when they start devaluing the dollar and leading into the halving coming up, and this is just my opinion, I believe this will have a good effect on crypto long term. But right now, I think it's not a good situation at all. We're just seeing one leg down after another, and a lot of people are losing their shirts. But it's all a long-term thing for me. I don't see it as an issue of what's crypto doing now. It's what's crypto doing in the future and what can it do for the future. We'll go to Tim right away on that, but first I want to do a big shout out to Kevin Smith, who sent $2 in the super chat as well and says, hang in there, bud. I appreciate it. We are really bankrupt at WAM due to all the demonetization and censoring, so I really appreciate those super chats. They go a long way, and pressing like and sharing this video goes a long way as well. Tim, what do you think of the crypto markets in this insane bloodbath of market sell-off?
Yeah, thanks, Josh. And I do just want to point out, so I mean, for those of you who saw, I gave a talk at AnarchoVegas. I'd highly recommend you guys watch that. It's on the WAM channel. Got to scroll down a tiny bit to find that. But after that speech, there was a Q&A session with all the speakers up on stage. I was next to Sherry Peel Jackson, which was kind of cool because she was really the first. I was watching Freedom to Fascism. Fascism was one of the first things I saw. So, anyways, being next to her was pretty cool. I digress. Someone on stage asked, what is crypto going to do in a crisis? And I gave an answer. This is February 11th. I said, listen, this is not going to be a popular answer to give right now. But I think during the initial stages of a crash, I expect Bitcoin and crypto to go down by just as much or even more than what you'd see in traditional assets. But however, on a long enough time horizon, and this is what Josh was alluding to, that then we'd see enough money printing would come into the system that money, extreme money printing and wars and all the other stuff that goes on when you get financial calamities, that would then make the price of crypto go up. Again, not financial advice, just how my crystal ball operates. But I did call it out on stage, just like I called out the best way to play this type of scenario in the financial markets would be to do a strategy where I thought the markets were either going to go up big or go down big. And so I was hedged where my clients would make money if it went up big, they'd make money if it went down big, and if it stayed flat, they'd lose a little bit of money. So I wasn't worried about, no one's worried about the market being flat. I was in this environment, I was only worried about those two scenarios. And so that's how we were able to get all the upside last year, or most of the upside last year.
Right.
And then this year, we've got put options that are up almost 400%. Getting back to crypto. So right now what I have up on screen is something called the Fear and Greed Index. And so for me, that's the best indication of when a good time to buy is. Again, this is for informational purposes only. Right now is extreme fear. We're at a 17. I think yesterday, I saw a 13 at one point. Last month, it was a 65, which indicates greed. Now, the problem, when you're at 17, to me, that's a time that you should be out considering, trying to go buy some of this. I mean, so right now, I'm also putting up on not on stage. We've got the coin Gecko that shows Bitcoin right now at $7,640, down 11% for the week. Ethereum down 16% for the week. A lot of the altcoins down, 20% or more for the week. Obviously, a very bad week. However, there's always two sides to every coin. And so when it's a good time, when everyone is scared, that's a good time, in my opinion, to go buy. And so I know I do, shameless plug here, I do offer crypto IRAs where you can get crypto inside of your retirement accounts. You can do so in a Roth.
Check the links below.
You can do so in a Roth IRA, and guess what? Tax-free gains. Trade inside it, tax-free gains. And you don't have to only put crypto in there. So we could do traditional stuff. We could do physical gold. We could do all sorts of different ways that we can do gold. So I'm very, very unique in that I can do different alternative investments. Even the traditional stock market is a very untraditional way of how we have that managed. And people always ask for solutions. And I was begging you guys literally for the last year. And I've been doing this. I basically hardly made any trades at all the past year and a half. And the strategy just rocked it because I was worried about these big tectonic moves. And that's exactly what we protected our clients from. We got the move up. And then we didn't get the move down because what I'm scared about is, okay, we showed this article a few days ago. The Fed's Boston Fed President Rosengren, it suggested that the Fed comes out and starts buying stocks. The Bank of Japan has massively increased the amount of stocks that they're buying, and they've already had a massive amount that they were buying. So, Josh, I just want to leave people with this. It's, when others buy, when others are fearful, and be fearful when others are buying. So right now is a time where everyone's selling, particularly in the crypto markets. And so, I had a client who got in. I think the first crypto IRA we did was the guy got in for around like $3,200, and now this entire move up to where we're at right now, $7,800, was all tax free. And so this is a smarter way to do it. Yeah, I'm making a sales pitch, but I also tried making a sales pitch to get into my investment strategy for the past several months. And if you were into that, you'd be thanking me right now. So I've got no clients calling me, and I'm not trying to take a victory lap here. We had
300 to 400% up. I'd be pretty happy myself.
Well, the thing is, the accounts are about even, but what we did is we got all the upside last year and we didn't get this downside, but it was how we set it up was we quantified, we knew that because with options, we know going in ahead of time what our worst case scenario is. We know how many chips that we could possibly lose on the table. And so other people are doing things like, I'll just put a stop loss in there. Go watch the video that we did with Kirk Chisholm. Unfortunately, it was probably one of the videos that had the least amount of views out of any video that's come out the past 20 days. In my opinion, it was probably the best video there. Just kind of came out there.
That and Sam Tripoli. We got shadow banned real hard on some of the best.
Yeah, no, and then also check out Josh's appearance on Sam Tripoli. That was awesome. And we do have Lynn Albrecht should be going on his show really soon if it's not already out already.
Well, I appreciate it, Tim. By the way, for those of you that don't want your crypto right now, there's a link below. There's an address below that you could donate to that helps out a guy that is basically having to sell his house in the next few days to be able to stay alive so I can keep doing this. So if you guys want, you can check those links below and press like on the video. And a big shout out to M. Goldie, who sent $1.99 in the super chat. He said he wasn't able to give $2, but was able to give $1.99 because they wouldn't let him do the $2. And then another big shout out to Barlight Broker, who sent $2 in the super chat. Says, put this money towards your gold chain, Josh. Well, I'll put it together towards like a plastic chain that looks gold. It's just as good. And a big shout out to all those people. Seriously, those super chats are the #1 thing keeping Wham alive right now. Seriously. If you aren't aware yet, I'm actually literally selling everything I own and leaving the country right away. Apparently, I can't fly from Europe, but I can still fly to Europe. And I'm going to be going out to Eastern Europe where it's much cheaper, like $350 a month rent, all bills and furnished included and all that kind of stuff. So I'm doing that right away so that I can continue doing these videos with you guys on a regular basis. It's all I can do right now because they've demonetized, censored us, and shut us down so dramatically bad. All the biggest stories in the news get demonetized. War in January, demonetized. Julian Assange, Epstein, definitely demonetized. Talking about coronavirus, definitely demonetized, though they just walked back that to a certain extent, and CEO Susan Wojcicki went back a little bit on her policy to immediately demonetize all videos with coronavirus even mentioned in them. Another big shout out to M. Goldie, who sent $4.99 now in the super chat. Again, thank you so much for that. Seriously, put the ha 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 emoji. I really do appreciate that. That's the only money that's probably going to be coming in today, except for a few cents here and there from other videos that aren't demonetized on our channel going back a while.
Just so people know, I mean, I said this before, is that my healthcare bill is actually more than what YouTube is giving Josh now. I mean, like monthly healthcare premium, because I mean, I got a family of 4 here, but you know, it's still, to give you an idea, that is more than what Wham is bringing in from YouTube these days. And so another way to help out is, you know, becoming a client, and then, you know, we do other things, you know, as well. But, you know, there's other meetings too that have gone on. So actually today, Trump met with a bunch of Wall Street bigwigs, except for Jamie Dimon wasn't there because he was getting his, you know, heart fixed from the other day. But
from the shock of the markets crashing. Yeah, why didn't I see this coming?
Yeah, how crazy is that it's all on the same day? So let me pull up the CNBC article right now where we've got, I'm trying to pull it up, but I've got ad blocker on, so it's not letting me right now. But anyways, we also have the NASDAQ is going to open up limit down tomorrow. So that's what we saw happen earlier with the Dow Jones, or it was S&P 500 actually earlier this week. But yeah, right now we've got futures absolutely tanking, down over 1,000 points. S&P is down almost 4.5%. NASDAQ is down almost 5%. The volatility index, that one's up, baby. That one's already up at $53. Even Europe, I mean, most of Europe right now is all down about 1%. So it's going to be another bloodbath tomorrow. Will we break 22,000 tomorrow? I mean, let us know in the chat. I mean, do you guys think we're going to break 22, or is the plunge protection team going to come in and quote unquote save us?
Well, I should mention that there's people talking about the Bank of England doing QE, though there's no evidence of it, so it might be not QE. But the UK interest rates were cut in an emergency move recently, as BBC goes into. Shinobi Wan says, "Wham is the only place I get my news. Go, Master Josh, go." I appreciate that, man. Really appreciate that. Jonathan Brooks sent $1.99 in the super chat. Big shout out to you, and also Rainy Steps, a regular in the chat here at Wham, another person I really appreciate, sent Canadian $2.79 in the super chat and says hello with nerdy glasses and a thumbs up. I relate to that. I really appreciate that. And, you know, you guys are awesome, and it's the heartbeat of Wham is the viewers. So I'm not saying that to just, you know, be that guy. I'm serious. You guys are making this all possible. I have the flu right now, but I'm doing this because I need to do this because, first of all, there's crazy things in the news. Second of all, this channel is getting ripped apart, and I can't afford to go one day without doing stuff like this. So big news. We're going to keep up with all of it going forward. Any final words as we wrap this up, Tim?
Well, I think we covered a lot of the ground for everything that's going on. But yeah, I mean, look tomorrow. I'm sure we might be doing another video, depending on, you know, if it looks like it's gonna open up as bad as what it looks like right now, and you know, how long before we see, you know, the Dow maybe break 20,000. I think that's a gigantic psychological barrier. And so if we see that happen, I mean, who knows? And just think of it this way. I mean, the Dow was very, very close to 30,000 before it started going down. And I mean, the S&P is a better way to measure things, anyways. But anyways, everyone talks about the Dow. So the Dow could literally lose half and still get to where we started the last crisis. I believe the last crisis was like 14,600 or 700. I'm not looking at it right now, but that's right around where it started. So we literally could go in cut in half and be where we started the last time. Just keep that in mind. Now, granted, the world's been flooded with trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars, so it's not necessarily comparing apples to apples. But crazy situation. If you're close to retirement, definitely check the links down below for the Liberty Advisor. I don't bite. And if you don't become a client and we talk, you'll probably end up getting some good information anyways out of it. But that's enough for the sales pitch. Thanks for having me on, Josh. And
And closing it off, I do want to give another shout because I'm still getting these super chats. M Goldie sent another $4.99 in the super chat. Says, "How's it going?" with the guy laying on his back. That's kind of weird, but I appreciate the super chat. Thank you very much. Again, you're a hero today. Barlight Broker sent another $2 in the super chat. Says, "You'll get that chain because you do the right thing." Well, I appreciate that super chat, and I appreciate you making me say that out loud on a live stream. A big shout out to all of you that are tuning in today. Make sure to press like on this video. Finally, Cody Hare says, "Josh or Tim, would you fist fight Jerome Powell to end the Fed?" Well, yeah, if he consents to that, 100% I would. Come on. Why wouldn't I fist fight Jerome Powell if he consented to it? Again, not being violent, not inciting violence, just a playful, good old fashioned fight. Anyway,
and the Fed's going to end itself. The Fed's. I used to spend so much time in the Fed movement. I mean, obviously I expose them all the time, but you know what? Eventually, the Fed, just like the first central bank of America and the second central bank of America, those both went away. The Federal Reserve will eventually go away. It's just how much are they going to bring us all down with it? And there were some other articles too where Trump was just absolutely furious with everything that the Fed's doing. But the problem is he's furious for all the wrong reasons, which is what pisses me off more than anything. And so here's another bonus article for you guys. I know we were going to leave. Of course, stupid ad blocker thing.
It's never going to end because we got lots of super chats coming in that I have to get to in a moment. But go ahead, Tim.
Trump urged Mnuchin to pressure Fed's Powell on economic stimulus, an explosive tirade about coronavirus. And this is where he goes on, where it said he met with all the different banking heads except for Jamie Dimon. And so the problem is when Trump was running, he was saying, the Fed's doing political things. They're trying to help out Janet Yellen, and they're trying to help out Hillary and Obama, and the Fed is going to cause all this inflation, and they should be raising rates. And now he's in there and he's bitching and complaining about them not doing the same stuff that he was complaining. And so for me, obviously he's stuck in a rock and a hard place, but he didn't get philosophical. And so for me, literally, the very first podcast I ever did, go back on my feed, check it out. The very first one, the week he got elected, I said he could do 1,000 things, but let's say 1,000 things I want him to do. Let's say he does 999, but the one he doesn't do has to do with changing the, using the bully pulpit against the Federal Reserve. And if he starts acquiescing and he tries blowing up a big bubble again, because I wanted him to pick up the pieces, not to make this bubble get even larger, get even bigger. It's going to affect more people. I mean, I'm going to be okay from it because I've got the put options and I'm just going to go scoop everything off and buy it all half off for my clients. So, I'm hoping, and I've been telling you guys that's the strategy the entire time. But when it comes to Trump and the Federal Reserve, I feel like it was a much easier message to say like, hoorah, look how great everything is going, and look at me, and we're the best, we're the best economic president ever. It's a much easier message to sell than, the Ron Paul type message. And so I understand why he did it. And if he came out and gave a Ron Paul type message, it would probably then crash the stock market and he'd get blamed for that. Except guess what? He took the non-principled approach and he blew up a big bubble, and now he's going to get blamed for this crash too. So either way, he was going to get blamed for a crash, except now he really is to blame for getting everyone's hope and emotion, getting all this debt and deficits, exploding everything. Go back and watch that Anarcho talk. I mean, this was made before everything was going down. There's so many more issues than just coronavirus. Right. I mean, you've got massive debt. You've got all the junk bonds associated with the energy companies. There's just so many things.
The oil market's insane. The oil bonds are insane, as you reported, and we posted a video earlier today, Tim. And also, I mean, just this was the catalyst. The coronavirus was just a catalyst, not the cause, as we reported previously. I do want to give a big shout out to Dan S., who sent Australian $14.99 in the super chat. Says, "Hey from Australia, love your work. Nice to get some truth." Thank you so much. You are a hero, and I appreciate it. I really do appreciate you guys. And scrolling down, we got M. Goldie, who sent $1.99 again in the chat. Thank you very much. He says, "Meh. Friday's payday." I appreciate that. Da Vinci Jeremy is in the chat again, and I really appreciate him joining us. I mean, he's got one of the best channels on YouTube. I think everyone should check that out. And also we got
Hey, what's up, Da Vinci?
We got let's see. My scroll isn't working here. Let me get back up to that. Ludwig Gorgon, who sent £2.99 in the super chat. Thank you so much to you as well. Big shout out to you. We really can't do it without you guys. Barlight Broker sent $2 again in the super chat. Says hashtag big gold chain life. All right. Yeah, I'll get right on that. Probably not going to be gold yet. I got to get a few more super chats before that, but I appreciate the support. It really does mean a lot to us, and it goes a long way. Trust me. M Goldie sent another 199 in the super chat. He's going for the record here, and I really appreciate that once again. And let's see, we've got a few other people commenting. As for people who can't use the super chat, we can also we got crypto addresses in the description, as well as GoFundMe, Patreon, Subscribestar. For some reason, sometimes YouTube shuts down people's ability to send super chats for whatever reason, but I appreciate it in any form. Thank you so much, guys. Join us on flote.app, flote.app. I'm at Josh Sigurdson, as well as at Wham. I'm coming up on 3,000 followers on Flote. Something really big's happening there. Of course, Flote replaces Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Tumblr, and Reddit, all in one, with encrypted private messaging. You've got monetization on videos. You have super chats on the live streams. You have no algorithm, so you see what you see. You don't get, nothing is shadow banned. It's exactly what you want to see, and people aren't going to be nannied by some centralized authority there. So join us on flote.app, again, flote.app. All the links in the description, and become a client of Tim's, because obviously if you would have a while back ago, you would have been doing pretty well right now and felt a lot more secure in this whole insane world that we're living in. We are going to be getting back at you guys with much more shortly. I appreciate all of you tuning in. Make sure to press like on this video if you haven't already, and share it, because it is a report beginning to end with a whole bunch of craziness in between. So anyway, thanks for joining us today, Tim. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and Tim Picciott signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.